Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our weekly stock market update video. This is where we do data on the overall market, S&P 500, QQ, as well as the Mag 7s. We'll be looking at dark pool data, sentiment data, sector data, as well as earnings and economic data. And let's get started with sector data first before we get into the technical charts. All right, and if you guys are looking for the commodities update video, check out the video from tomorrow and subscribe and like and share. Always appreciate it. Let's get started. So currently, this is for 5 days for S&P 500. We're currently still getting rotations. So as long as rotations are continuing, market's not gonna tank. You're not gonna get those like 2-3% down days. That just means that the overall market, there's still money in the market, right? If there is outright fear, you'll see all the sectors, including healthcare, financials, everything will be down at the same time. That means money is leaving the market. So currently, we're still getting that rotation. So no huge red flags at the moment in terms of sector rotation. You can see healthcare is pretty much up 4% this week, while a couple of them are down. So no sense of red flags. Fear and greed index, talk about this one where it's been a little bit broken for a while. So we'll just take it with a grain of salt. That being said, we are at 22, so I don't know what's gonna look like if we get a couple actually like big red days. Are we gonna like start to go into the teens? Usually when it goes to the teens is a good buying opportunity, but we barely even dropped, so it's a bit tough to use this indicator as a buying opportunity. That being said, market participants are being very bearish this week. Right, 49%. We haven't seen this high for a while. And what I noticed from watching the market every week, this is the first week where market dropped with a bearish sentiment. Previously, and every week when the bearish sentiment increased, market always bounced and squeezed out the shorts. Um, so this is the first week. You can see prior weeks we were getting become the opposite, right? Every time people become less bullish and more bearish, market just keeps on squeezing higher. Even this week here, I remember we talked about this one where market participants were being too bearish and it just went to new all-time highs. So this is actually the first week, right after that Wednesday sentiment data came out. Um, we actually moved down. Let's see, about a 3.5%, right, on the Qs to the lows, but obviously we bounced a little bit. So I would count that as a shift, just a slight shift in the market for now. So we'll have to see if bears can actually follow through. Um, take a look at the chart a little bit after. In terms of dark pools, we're talking about this one, SMH, which is the semiconductor sector, which is the biggest holding of SMH, obviously Nvidia. But the semiconductor has been the fuel for the market on the entire way up. We have these ton of these huge prints over here. Those large prints was around this area. I'll just bring up SMH, be more clear for you guys. So that area is roughly around this whole cluster of volume here. All right, so we are still technically in that area, right? So it overshoot a little bit. So this, to me, it seems a little bit more just longs taking profit. It's not really like a short, because it'd be really tough to short semiconductor sector, to be honest. But yeah, so these are probably longs being taken profit over, and this one may be a short, but currently price did start to become getting closer underneath it. So we'll have to see, right? Let's say we just cracked to the lows of that structure and bounce. Are we gonna break through that structure, make another lower high, right? There's a daily downtrend confirmed right here. Are we gonna bounce again, make a lower high, then make a lower low and crack through this structure? If you do, then that's gonna be a rough leg, a little bit of a rough leg in the market, right? And when we do bounce back above it, is this whole structure gonna act as overhead supply now, right? And that would be the first time where we're getting real overhead supplies, right? I wouldn't really count this as overhead supply. It's pretty just like a 3 day sideway thing. Um, but we are kind of back testing the lows of it. So this is the real supply that bulls and bears have been battling, right? You can see on last Friday, we bounced pretty much exactly off of that low. Now we're testing again. Yeah, so there's dark pool layers for SMH, and as well as PSQ, which is pretty much the short ETF for QQQ. And that short you can see is right here on the 14th, is right pretty much Friday, right? So it's pretty much right here, right around this candle right here. You can see is this is the regular Qs, right? If it's a short, then obviously you're gonna look the other way, right? So it kind of was shorter around here. It is number one print. That means it's the biggest print ever in this PSQ ETF. Not as significant. Obviously, if it was the QQQ first biggest print, then that would be incredibly significant. But that being said, it's right at this level right here. Um, we are currently slightly trading right above it. And interesting enough, the lows here are marked right off of that. So that could be someone buying the dip there. But it would be weird for them to short this. If they shorted this, meaning they're long in the Qs, right? That level. So let's keep an watch on this level, see if we do break above it or crack below it around next week, which is we're pretty much sitting right on it at the moment. So yeah, pretty much close right on it, right? So no direction yet as of now, but yeah, so we'll see which way ends up cracking through. There's earnings. We got the biggest, well, not as big as the Max 7 week, but obviously Nvidia. Everybody's on radar would be watching this. So if Nvidia report is bad, it probably drag down the whole semiconductor sector as well as the Qs. It will definitely be a big market mover. And Home Depot will move a little bit of a retail sector as well. So keep an eye on this, take a screenshot, and we'll see how Nvidia reports. In terms of economic data, so not getting, we didn't even get our, we're not getting some of those data, right? Government still doing their thing. But for next week, we're getting the FOMC minutes on Wednesday. Not really much market moving. PMI, a little bit, right? If it comes in weak, might signaling more weakness in the economy, but nothing too significant this week. All right, let's get in the charts. So let's go to SPY first, and then we'll take a look at Qs and the Max 7s. So right now, SPY did confirm a daily downtrend, right? Over here, big move down, big move up. This is a lower high and a lower low. You could argue this was also a daily downtrend here, right? Lower high right there, or you call it double top, and then this downtrend as well. But so there's two scenarios here that I'm seeing. So because we have not really cracked below this demand structure yet, it's currently acting as demand because, right, these are getting bought up at the moment. We could potentially make a tightening range here, right? Big move up, down, big move up, doesn't make the new high. Big move down, doesn't make a new low. That's the characteristic of a tightening range. And then it breaks. So we'll have to see if it continues to tighten up a little bit. Something like this, right? Big move down, tighten up, tightening range here, and it broke. But this one is a lot bigger than this one. So if this continues to tighten up and breaks, that will create a bigger move than this one. So keep on watching that. If the bears does show up right away on Monday, crack through here, these two pivots, then we're gonna start looking at the this low. The structure is low here around this 654. If we do bounce right away on Monday, then I'm looking for that tightening range. So we'll see which way it goes. Yeah. SPY is a little bit stronger because of the healthcare sector I showed you guys earlier, where healthcare was up like 3.8%. So that's why SPY held up much better compared to the Qs. Weekly chart, no real anything either, right? It's just a chip chop range. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. As you can see, Qs So this could be a sign where to buy the dip when Q's broke to new lows and you get no follow through because SPY held its low. That's usually the sign to buy the dip. But at the moment, with all the stuff going on, and if you're a short-term trader, buying anywhere, it's fine. But if you're a longer-term holder, it's not that great of a spot. But we'll see. So because we broke the lows and no follow through here, we got that V shape in the morning here. But that being said, bulls aren't out of the woods yet at the moment, so there's no tiny range gonna be on this one because this broke to a new low. So if if the Qs ends up rolling over, SPY's not gonna be able to hold this tiny range. So I would keep an eye watch on the Qs more this coming week than the SPY, especially with this. It's pretty much this low. It's marked out of all these lows, and it still hasn't cracked this low yet. The red flag for me would be if we break down and this structure finally acts as resistance. You can see the volume here as well, and those two structures where it made the lows. It's pretty much these two lows and these lows right here. All these lower wicks are marked off of these two volume nodes. So if bear is going to do some serious damage to the charts, then we need to crack down below a major, flipping the major demand zone to the major supply zone. So currently that has not happened yet. We are having a little bit of overhead supply now, right? Versus when we're just blowing through all-time highs after all-time highs. There's not a lot of overhead supplies. And finally, we have a tiny bit of supply, but bears have their first step as well, daily downtrend at the moment. So there's a slight shift, right, in the market sentiment where bearish sentiment actually brings the market down. So there's a little bit of shift in the market at the moment versus we're going right straight up this entire time since April with no overhead supplies at all, right? Not even at one point there is any overhead supply really. So this is the area where I started being a little bit cautious. Let's take a look at the MAX7s to see if are they going to have any kind of weakness in their charts where they will drag the market down more or support the market. All right, let's go Tesla first. I don't say I saw this coming, but yeah, it looks like it wants to do that big tiny range that we talked about. So, right, Tesla has a history of forming sideways tiny ranges very, very often. Small ones and big ones, right? Breakout. We have a bigger one here. Big move up, big move down, big move up. It tried so hard to break above, but it didn't. So, and then we broke down from. So now this whole structure here, we went sideways since let's see, September. Just call it September 19th. So that's been 2 months. So it's a 2 months overhead supply now. If the Qs look like this, then I would be a little bit more cautious. But so two-way sideways structure. So let's see if it already back tested. So we broke down, right? This Thursday was the breakdown. We broke all the support, right? Last Friday, bulls tried to hold it, right? You can see a very clear support here. Bulls tried to hold it, bounced, made a lower high, and then Wednesday was a little bit red day, and then Thursday, boom, right? That's the daily downtrend confirmed at the same time, and then you can see bears actually got follow through this time as well. A 6.6% down day after breaking every single support here, and even here. And I talked about this one for a couple weeks, saying if we do break this support, this 414, right? You can watch this video from last week. There is no volume here. It should be an easy flush for bears to fill this gap. Pretty much right away they did, and so now the next question is how far are they going to fill this whole void? You zoom out here, even with volumes from here and here, it's still not that much volume, right? So this should be where bears easily clear back to 357. Obviously, if the market is like bright green next week, it's not gonna go straight to 357. So you want to watch on the cues as well, right? If the cues decides to bounce here and go sideways to let that SPY form the tiny range, then we're gonna have like 2 green days before, right? So Friday we already backtested it, right? This Friday's high 412 is right at the low, pretty much this candle right here, right? For the low is 411. So if the bulls are gonna get back above this structure, you need to break above at least, I would say 417 to really have a chance to even come back to here. So let's see, up 0.59. Yeah, and it's a little bit stronger on Friday than the Qs slightly. Right, we touched that 412 wall, and then it kind of just barely even pulled back. So we'll see. It's yeah, a tiny bit stronger. Nothing too crazy. But a little bit weaker after hours. A little weaker at the end of the day, pull back here, but about the same. So yeah, so nothing crazy here. So we'll see how the market decides to bounce or not. But Thursday was definitely a relative weakness day, and straight to 383, which is the exact low of these lows. So currently the structure is still holding, right? The low of here. But bigger picture, if market starts to weaken, there's definitely a chance they'll come back to 347s. But yeah, you guys know, I get the idea of that tiny range. This is like the yearly month tiny range. Yeah, and it broke out right here. Took like what, 2020 to 4 years. So maybe we'll form another one like that, right? Kind of like this. But for a Tesla to go all the way down here, I would say probably maybe potentially 283. Market needs to pull back at least 10% or more. Yeah, 10% for it to drop 30, roughly 10 to 15-ish percent on the market. All right, let's take a look at Meta. So Leady Bear still, right? We talked about this one. This is the first guy that actually confirmed a weekly downtrend, as well as a daily downtrend. It was the first out of the 7, I would say, to confirm daily and weekly downtrends. And then they reported that earnings, and then everybody dumped it. Everyone's back to April's low. Let's see. I mean, 20% still quite a bit of ways, but all right. So no signs of bulls yet as of this time. Still, right? Daily downtrend continues. Weekly downtrend also continues. Right? Weekly lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and just been grinding down. Let's take a look on the 15-minute chart. Is there any signs of strength? Nope. Exactly the same as the Qs. So still no relative strength yet. But we did break the support on Friday, and with not much follow through. So what you want to see is when the Qs are ripping, this rips twice as much or a lot more. And when the Qs are red, you want to see this guy hold. And that would mean that buyers are starting to be interested in this name, and then you can start to look for that potential higher low to get in and higher high. But currently, still no signs of that relative weakness yet at the moment. But it may start to shift because we're getting a little bit oversold now. So this is kind of like where the zone. I can see all these volumes here. It's kind of like the zone where should start to shift, but my issue is with that. What if the market starts to um, pull back even more, right? Market starts to pull back, like let's say 10%, and Meta just comes down a little bit more, right? Let's say it comes down a little bit to like just like a 8% or something, right? That's when it's a lot more safer to buy the dip because market is eventually going to bounce with a 10% drop, right? Um, and with Meta being pulling down a lot more already, and if it starts also showing relative strength, then when the market bounces, you'll get a lot of a bigger bounce. Right? Obviously, I'm not saying it's going to come back all the way here, but you guys get the idea of that relative strength and relative weakness. But for now, I'll say it's just same, not weaker or stronger on Friday. All right, let's look at Amazon. All right, looks like we filled the gap, which we talked about last week, saying if this breaks down, right? We talked about this already, setting a lower high, and if it breaks down, we will get a downtrend as well. So Amazon also confirmed a daily downtrend when we broke this Friday slope on Thursday, and it will likely backtest prior highs, right? Super clear, prior highs, backtest, also gap fill at the same time. That being said, even though we backtest here, this should be where bulls are playing defense. So let's see if the bulls did what they should or not. So they play defense, and then no offense. So Amazon is still actually relatively weaker. So this is what we talk about: relative strength and relative weakness. This is relative weakness, right? The Qs went like this, and then like that, and pretty much closed right here. While Amazon gave back pretty much almost all of that morning move. So that's a sign where potentially there is more downside if the market is going to be red. So Amazon here, relative weakness actually, even when it landed on support. Relative weakness and strength usually flips around when you hit support or resistance. And Amazon didn't do that. Right? It hit support, and that relative weakness is still continuing. So that's not a good sign for Amazon bulls. But that being said, the chart is still technically okay, right? You zoom out. This is just a big move up 3 weeks and then backtesting where we came from. So the red flag would be if we start breaking down through this backtest and then come back down to around these 224 zone. Right? That means that we're just back to this whole entire chip trap zone again. And this breakout would just be a failed breakout. And that major red flag would be if we actually crack below this whole structure, this 3 months, 4 to 4 month structure here, and this whole demand zone would act as supply. And that would be the red flag. By the time, I think the market would be at least down, 5 to 10%. We go like this, crack through here, back test, failed here. That would be pretty big of a red flag. But for now, let's see if the bulls can defend this prior breakout zone on the back test, right? They do. If they show up Monday right away, okay, then that's fine. It could just become building a structure right above the prior demand zone, and that would be absolutely perfect, no red flags at all. If bulls can just show up right away here and build a structure above the all-time high structure. So yeah, so let's see if Amazon bulls show up on Monday, but as of Friday, it's still relatively weaker to the market. All right, let's take a look at Microsoft. All right, so this is what perfect example of relative weakness flipping into relative strength right when you hit support. See how this support, support, hit support. Green days on Friday. Look at it, 1.37% as well. Right, so held support again, bounce. So yeah, there's a relative, pretty much close the high of the day, up 1.3%, while the Qs was flat. And before that, look at how much weaker it is compared to the market. Market was going higher, and Microsoft was tanking. So it's a perfect example of relative weakness switching to relative strength here. So now we know this level is a must hold for Microsoft bulls. It's defended multiple times now, and yeah, this is also a tightening range. So a lot of tightening ranges lately, but you call this a double bottom, or yeah, or tightening range, doesn't matter. You call this double top, yeah, as well. But it's like a tiny bit lower than here, and this is like a tiny bit higher than here. So yeah, we could call it a double top or a double bottom, or this, yeah, who knows, maybe a beautiful tiny range count, right? So, but so we're clear support and resistance in this range for now. Um, but as of Friday, relative strength for Microsoft. So Microsoft is currently helping the market. Meta is not. Amazon is not. And let's take a look at Google. So Google also helping the market at the moment. This is called, especially after hours. I got that news from Warren Buffett being in Google as well about that big spike after hours and 4%. So no reflex, back to all time highs. Not like all time highs, but pretty much near all time highs. Right, we're like what, 4% up from all time highs. We're sitting like right, yeah, sitting like right at 287. 287 is okay. We're sitting right on resistance, but I wouldn't really call it a resistance because there is really not that much volume up here. Sitting around like right here. We're already above all these upper wicks. So just this little structure here. So pretty much bulls. Next target 291. See if they can break that. See if that news. Okay, the red flag would be if that news, and I'm getting all back on Monday or Tuesday to make that. Yeah, because it was actually relatively a little bit weaker on Friday before that news came out. See, where it just barely bounced. It kind of just faded, and we're down 0.7%. So the red flag would be if we get back all this news pump. Sorry, not news pump, but like the news gains. All right, let's look at Apple. So lead bull, literally holding through. Not a single day it dropped, even on every single day, even on the red days. Apple doesn't drop on green days. It doesn't. I mean, green day moved up a little bit here, but this kind of looks like it wants to form a tightening range as well. Big down, big up, didn't make a new high. Tried again here on Friday, and then kind of made the upper weekend. So if we come back down, if it doesn't break this 266 low again and bounces, okay, we're looking for that tightening range now. But if we crack below 266, that's the daily downtrend confirm. We're probably going to go straight to 262 around this zone right here. Break 262, we're looking at 257 to 58 zone. If market bounces and we break above this 275, we're probably going to go straight to all-time highs again. That being said, Apple is lead bull, no red flags, definitely holding the market up here. What will be a red flag is all the Max 7 starts rolling over. If you get this bear break on Apple and the Meta doesn't bounce, Amazon stays relatively weak. Microsoft breaks its right, the sideways range support. They finally broke below it. Google gave back its gains from the news. Apple started to finally pull back after up for, let's see how many weeks. 37%, right? And then finally decides to pull back. Then we'll get that big like 3% down day. And the catalyst maybe from Nvidia. So we'll have to see on Wednesday. Make sure to tighten your stop losses and all that kind of stuff, especially when There's the name. That's going to be a market mover reporting after hours. We kind of drew this line together, I think a couple weeks ago. So resistance, 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 resistance. Kind of gapped up above it, but sold off into it, and then reject here again. Rolled over right back into the same support again that it's been supporting for the last 4 months. Right, prior resistance, breakout, back test, actually support again, breakout, back test, actually support again. Tried here, but this is making a lower high now this time. So this is the first time there is a tiny bit of damage here on the structure versus before, right? That's why the market looks a little bit not as pretty anymore versus before, and held support again. So if this breaks this 181, right? Everybody and their grandma knows this 181 support now, and it's been holding for the last 2 months. If this breaks, we're probably going to flush to 170 right away. And maybe we'll get something like this. You know how earnings just whips around? So like whips down, stops everyone, their grandma out, hits this 170 and 165, and then kind of like whips back up. And then and we'll see. Honestly, nobody knows how this earnings is going to trade. So we'll see how it goes. But Wall Street definitely likes to give those like whipsaws, you know, especially right when the earnings come out, stops everybody out. All right, that is all for you guys. If you guys got any questions, feel free to comment below, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe, support the channel, and check out the Patreon link if you guys want to talk 15-minute one-on-one with me for free and learn more about your issues and what we can work on. Have a great rest of you guys' weekend, and check out the commodities video from tomorrow. I'll see you guys then.